Hey, everybody, welcome to The Challenge with John Chapman podcast. I am John Chapman. I'm the voice of one crying in the wilderness, and we are endeavoring to bring religion and politics back to the dining room discussion, and we're definitely going to be doing that today. We appreciate those of you who are liking and following us, and you can share this show. You can find us over on YouTube. You can find us over at whitedoveministries.net if you want to find out how it is we're merging all this together, that which is the ministry that God's called us to and the podcast itself, so you can go check it out there. We're on Rumble, too. You can find the Challenge podcast with John Chapman there. And please like, please share. And we're really appreciating it. Seeing a lot of good response, a lot of good conversations. As a matter of fact, I've had so much response from the last podcasts that I can build an entire conversation about what people's thoughts are, the things that we're talking about. So I appreciate that. That information's coming in, and we appreciate your support for that too. Today, we are literally bringing it to, well, not literally to the dining room table, but to the table. Today, we have I would say a roundtable discussion, but the table is square. So joining me today are several brothers in the Lord. And we're going to be talking about the upcoming election, which is going on here pretty soon for the Republicans for the state of Iowa. And going around the room here to my left here, Pastor Mark Marinziera. Thanks for joining us, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate having you. Pastor of
the Ecclesia of His Grace and Glory Ministries.
Amen. And bivocational, don't you? You work hard for a living right along with all of it, don't you?
I do.
I appreciate that. Bear witness for that, too. Brad Black, I'm glad you could join us today, brother.
Thanks for having me.
Yep, local businessman, another brother in the Lord here who has thoughts also about this and was willing to come to this conversation and say, you know, what does it look like, what's coming? And Mr. Chris Palladino, another brother in the Lord involved in our ministry. Chris, good to have you with us today, man.
Thank you.
Thanks for
nice to
taking
be here.
Yeah, it's appreciated, man. Thanks for taking the time. Hugely. You were the scariest one of all of us. When you came in, these are the words you said: I just downloaded the Constitution. and there was this pause. It's just like, uh-oh, this guy's...
And the Bill of Rights.
Yeah. And the Bill of Rights. Look out. And that's the stuff that we encourage. I mean, it was awesome when you said that, like, hey, we're going somewhere. Guys, we got an election in front of us here. It's coming up, the primaries, June 2nd, I believe.
A week from today. And I hope people are gearing towards that. I've never been as involved as the primaries I am now. And the people we're going to be talking about here are Zach Land, Adam Steen, Eddie Andrews, Brad Sherman. But in the midst of that, we also have Rob Sand, who's the single Democrat. They're not running a primary. They've just got their guy. They kind of always had. And so I think that's interesting in the point of this conversation, too. So I'm just going to start right there. What level of involvement have you guys had? What are your thoughts on this? What have you been tracking for the last several months yourselves? Well, I'll jump in on that. With regard to involvement, and I'm going to take it back to, the word. God has said that, he has placed a watchman on the wall, and we should all be watchmen, in what's going on. The unique thing is, as you mentioned, there's a GOP primary on June 2nd. There's 5 candidates in there. You mentioned 4 of them, and then Randy Feenstro's another one.
Oh, yeah, I keep forgetting about him.
And then on the Democrat side, Rob Sand is running, there's nobody challenging him. The other contenders dropped out. But within that primary, there's also 2 candidates running for Senator. Joni Ernst is not running for re-election.
True.
And then there's a number of individuals running for both Zach Nunn for District 3 here. That represents the greater Polk County area and what have you. And then outside of that, a number of individuals are running for state district representation. So, my involvement really got started about 10 years ago in 2016, and went to a caucus, and there were 5 people at that caucus: Carol, my wife, and myself. Mike Nang, who was running for Department of Agriculture head.
Oh, I remember that name. Yeah.
And his wife. Found out that they're both graduates of university, which I graduated from Buena Vista College. But now it's university. And then the gentleman, Brad Bousted, who basically is a figurehead in Urbandale GOP politics. So, and it surprised me because this was a presidential election year, and there was really nobody there, And then, as things progressed, I've always heard how, specifically on the Republican side of the ticket,
folks aren't involved in off-season elections. Well, this is a midterm election, off-season, whatever you want to say. So just tried to get involved, and really it was from the Lord to observe, get to know what the situation is, what the environment is from that side of it, but then trying to engage individuals to make an awareness of, number one, it's a privilege to vote. It's a right, but it's a privilege. And Thomas Jefferson said, the government you elect is the government you deserve. So if you don't vote, you get whatever the other side gives you. And that's not a lot, or it's not what you want.
Right.
So,
right. And the other taking you guys seeing this, Brad, this election is kind of been walking along, and you've shared some opinions in past in regards to this too. Would you say this is a season where you've become more involved, or have you always kind of kept an eye on what's going on for things like primaries and things like that?
I would say I'm a little more involved. I really got involved in politics, honestly, in 2016, when my son could vote for the first time. I remember taking him to the poll, and I said to him, I'm sorry, this is the first election you get to vote in. Because it was Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. And he didn't know anything really, but ever since then, it's just been very important to know who we're voting for, what we're voting for, what we believe in. I mean, we're a strong Christian family. We believe in biblical values. And if people trying to steer our kids towards that, not that they're adults, but we don't ever stop parenting, which as they've gotten older, I've realized more and more. But just to get involved, keep my family involved, and to know what's important. Because I'm like, Mark, it's a privilege to vote.
Yeah.
I mean, my family thinks I'm a little crazy, but like people died to be able to vote.
Yeah.
So for us to just sit at home and go, well, I don't like all those candidates, then you end up with what you get. And then you can't really complain because you didn't want to participate in the whole process.
Right.
So,
right, for sure. Chris, how about you? What's caused you to get a little bit more involved in this and just paying a little more attention?
I like what he said about being a watchman. What's being said here is if you're not going to participate, you don't get to complain, and you have to swallow whatever you're being given. And I think for me, stuff I've had to swallow, I don't like, and it's causing me to want to pay closer attention to who is out there and what they're actually doing. And laws govern our life, so it helps to kind of know what people are suggesting, and some conversations we were having before all this kind of it's like, wow, that's really going on. So as just a regular Joe, I'm not a businessman or anything, but it impacts us all. So I think to be aware is very good for your own self and for your community.
Yeah. One of the things at White Dove Ministries we've done, it's been quite a few years. Chris, if you remember, I can't remember how many years ago it was, but we're almost finished up with going through the Truth Project.
About 10 years ago.
About 10 years ago when we first did it. Mm-hmm. And we're almost finished going through that again. And Del Tackett, teaching a class, Focus of Family, produces that program. And I forget that in the middle of that, they talk about governance. They talk about how that rolls. And I'm looking at that even 10 years later and going, oh my gosh, why didn't I grab this 10 years ago to have that understanding? Would you say the classes like the Truth Project play a role in wanting to be involved in something like this?
It did. That was 10 years ago. I should have woke up more back then, but
don't woke.
Better late than never.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no woke. Just
no, I'm not woke, but woke up. And the things that slip by are the things you're not paying attention to, and those are the things that can hurt you the most.
Yeah,
boy, man, that's true. We're going to say law on that here for just a minute. Because you never know what point in your life it is or isn't going to make a difference. And I'm surprised now as I get older why I'm more vested in these things. And we are too. Mark, you mentioned that these other elections too. It can't be ignored that these things are going on right along with the primary here.
Yeah, because when you think about it, and put the parties aside. Government should be a reflection of the people, not the people a reflection of the government. And so, when I think about these things, and John, you mentioned it, you get older And like Brad said, you don't quit parenting, but that means that you start looking at things in a different way. So, as families are being formed and what have you, there's a focus on, household formation, parenting, and still being, a husband or a wife and all those things besides, career. And so things get crowded out. Well, now, children move out. That doesn't mean you let go of them, but at the same time, you've got some more time on your hands. So you could start taking in more and more of this information. And I think, one of the things that was really intriguing, specifically over the last year, we're talking about not only the ballot for governor, but the down ballot. But even more so, everybody talks about a Supreme Court decision based on the Danbury letter, separation of church and state, right?
Right.
But that's not what the Constitution says. Okay, shall not prohibit the exercise thereof, and everybody forgets about that. And so we should not shy away. You mentioned about the values and the morals and things like that. I think it was James Madison that said this type of government is only good if the people, and this is my paraphrase, the people are of moral and dare I say Christian background. And Charlie Kirk, I think, said it best when he was challenged by an individual. You're just trying to convert me. And he said, no, yes, I could point to the Bible where Deuteronomy and Leviticus lay out, the law. But when you think about the whole basis of our Constitution and everything else that arises from it, number one, we're endowed with powers and rights by our Creator. And I saw this recently that he was talking to an individual, and he said, the Constitution, yes, it doesn't necessarily refer to God, but it says Creator, it says Supreme Being. But then you look at the 13 colonies, 12 of them mandated that you be Christian. Okay, and I think Maryland was the only one that was like Roman Catholic. Mm-hmm. So you look at that, and I think younger people are hungry, for this, and I'm just really kind of catching stride at my late age. So, and I'll throw this out there. Hopefully, it's makes people put a smile on their face. I grew up in Chicago, so vote early, vote often. We don't do that obviously here in Iowa, but once again, it gets back to the fact that do we want to exercise that power that we have? Because you can go in there, you can click off a vote for governor, but if you don't click off a vote for senator, and the person wins and you feel doesn't represent you, like Chris said, you can complain, but to a large degree you contributed to it.
Right. Is there anybody's life where they didn't vote and there was a time hit you where you go, I see I should have, like I should, based on the fact that they hadn't?
Yeah.
You had?
Yeah.
Any particular election cycle that was for you, Chris?
All of them. All of them. You don't get to hear from just jumping, right? You got to go through the whole process of every election and every person elected that contributes to everything that amounts to this moment right now.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's looking back, it's I don't want to say I'm bearing anything, but it is a heavy thing to now bear, realizing if I would have had used my opinion, voted, got involved, at least did my own research, see what people are, what laws are wanting to pass, what this or that, it may have changed some things, So.
Yeah. Chris, that phrase you said, at least did my own research. I cannot tell you how that has been a formula for me. Only in the past handful of years, I went, oh my gosh. Oh, it took me a little extra time, but there was so much value in that. And when you say that, that's huge.
It may be work, but there's always value in any work, whether it's research in the people you are voting for, the people that are running, looking up your rights, the Constitution, knowing these things. It may take a little work and effort, but there's always value in it. And I'm not talking monetary. I mean, the real important value is in us, in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Thank God for the Holy Spirit that lives within us. As believers, this isn't an educated decision. This is also spirit led on top of finding that out, that information there. Brad, I know through some conversations, we even had the pleasure of joining you to go visit one of the governor candidates. We've had, and I don't know much about Randy Feenstra. I'm not sure if anybody does. All the other candidates, Zach Land, Adam Steen, Eddie Andrews, Brad Sherman. It's interesting to me, and I don't know about Zach as much. I know that Adam, I know Eddie, and I know Brad Sherman. Brad Sherman, pastor for 40 some years. Eddie, currently pastor and multicultural, Latino ministry as a pastor. And Adam Steen, licensed with the Assemblies of God as a minister. Don't know if he has any pastoral experience, but I see these guys. And the idea of this comes to bear. And this is what I want to throw your direction. Christian guy who I think might be a Christian guy, Zach, but I don't know, and Randy Feenstra, who's at least Dutch. And so I'm going to assume some sort of Christianity there. Does this create a conflict when we come together at this kind of a poll? You see all these guys and go, oh, okay, now how do I split the difference on that?
Well, I think it does. I mean, like knowing we were doing this, I spent a couple of days this weekend, like looking at all the different candidates. And you have a Brad Sherman and Adam, Eddie, all very much stand on their faith.
Yeah.
Two of them are pastors. I don't know if Adam has ever been an actual pastor of a church, but you can't find it on Zach Lane's stuff. Can't really find it on Randy Feenstra's stuff. So you just have to, I don't know, dig in more. Or like I even said to my wife, if we really want to know, you really got to go hear these people talk and have them answer the questions directly. Now, the event we went to, I think Mr. Steen was already getting a little bit political where he didn't really answer a question directly. And I think that's easy for them to fall into. But you can also pull them off to the side if you want to take the time and really dig in a little bit more. But that's also kind of the hard part.
Yeah.
Because they all get like a celebrity-ish status to them where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm afraid to talk to them. They're just us. They're just throwing their hat in the ring.
Yeah.
And they're all just people that all have flaws. If you want to dig deep, you can find a flaw in all of them, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Because we're humans. We're not perfect. I think it's super important to dig in and see what their character is, what they'll post, what they have on their pages, on their campaign pages.
Yeah.
Will tell you who they are. Generally, they don't go real deep in those pages though either. So you have to do more investigation into it.
Right. How about you guys? When these guys, and I, like you, Zach Lane doesn't come out and say, God told me, and I've heard Brad Sherman, Eddie Andrews, and Adam Steen all say, God has spoken to me, and I feel like he's asking me to do this. That gets confusing sometimes when you look at that. How about you, Chris, you, Mark? What does that do to you when you're going into this and go, no, I need somebody to stand up and say, you know what, I'm with Satan. That way I can say, I'm not voting for you. But it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. You're out. It doesn't matter that way.
Well, it doesn't happen. Once again, Satan, he is, he basically can appear as an angel of light. All right?
Yeah.
So we're called to test the spirit. And that is the challenge, as Brad said, you got to look into these folks. And what do? Well, you can look at their website, you can look at their palm cards, you can look at, everything. But that only tells me basically what their focus group said and their marketing team said. Okay.
Yeah.
And, and you could point to a number of products and what have you that over time they've had to have recalls and stuff like that. So what do? Well, you could dive deeper. I mean, we've got more power in these things nowadays than, we had when I graduated high school in the 70s, throughout the 80s and what have you. But I think the key thing is, as Brad said, you go and you listen to individuals and this has been a challenge because, one of the first debates that was had, the Moms for Liberty, all right? There were five podiums on the stage. Okay. And out of those 5 podiums, 4 of them were filled. Okay. And each one that was there, each candidate that was there was given basically 2 instructions at the beginning. You got 2 minutes to speak. You will not disparage any other candidate. Okay. So those are 2 things. Where I'm going with this is, one, you say that you're submitted. Okay. So you're going to follow the rules. The second thing is that, okay, you're given the opportunity to talk about yourself, because this is a sales pitch, as much as possible. It's a sales pitch.
Yeah.
So it starts off with the first individual, goes through his 2 minutes, speaks of his qualifications, his background. Goes to the second individual, talks about his background, his qualifications, why he should be governor. Goes to the third individual, does basically the same thing. Goes to the fourth individual, starts off by saying, I went before the Lord, I prayed, and I believe that I was led to run. Okay? And the thing that stuck out about that first debate was what happened after that.
Mm.
The number 2 candidate and number 3 candidate both jumped in. Hey, I want a rebuttal. I want to say the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So that stuck out to me, because at that point in time, it tells me, okay, if it's in your heart, you're going to express it.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't. Okay. The second thing was no disparaging the, other candidates. And that goes back to Ronald Reagan basically said, you don't talk bad about, competing candidates. Okay. And, there was one individual that was on stage at least 3 times that did that and disparaged the person that wasn't there. Okay. Yeah. And so that tells me really, okay, where's their heart in all this? Okay. But the flip side of it is, my approach is different than, let's say, your approach, than let's say your approach, than let's say your approach. So I go before the Lord and I pray about it. And it's like, who, Lord, should we be looking to? Okay. Because we're going to want, let's say, the most righteous person, right? But who did God utilize to basically bring the Israelites back unto him? Wasn't a Jew.
Right.
So it's one of those. I'm not saying that that's a situation with any of these 5 candidates.
Sure.
What I'm saying, though, is that, as we approach it, we need to know in our heart, have that peace that this is what the Lord wants us to do. Okay. Yeah. And so when it goes back to what Chris said, we don't want to look back and say, I woulda, shoulda, coulda. All right.
Right.
Because you could vote for somebody and let's say they don't get elected. Well, then you go before the Lord and find out, okay, Lord, what's the plan now? Because when Joe Biden was elected, I will tell you this, I wasn't one of the folks that voted for Joe Biden. I wasn't one of the folks that voted for Barack Obama. But I went before effectively our ministry when Joe Biden was elected. I said, we need to pray for this man. Mm-hmm. We need to stand in the gap for this man. So who's ever the candidate after the primary, we're going to stand in the gap for that man.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
100%.
Yeah, fully. Isn't that one of the struggles that happens for us, isn't it? Mr. Webster of the Webster Dictionary said this of politics. He said, if we choose to not seek after moral, and this is a paraphrase, if we choose not to seek after a moral person with character, moral man with character, then we also get what we deserve. It's similar to what Jefferson's talking about in regards to that. And one of the fights that I see happening are arguments that comes up amongst Christians. Well, that person's immoral. Well, that person's moral. Well, that person's immoral. Well, that person. So you're bringing up something here, Mark, that I think is a battle then that can create division even within the body of Christ. Well, I'm not voting for Trump because he's an immoral man. Well, I'm voting for so-and-so because I believe them to be a moral person. But you say that the inside of us, we have to be able to sit back and go, I voted, there's the result, and now I follow the Lord regardless. Chris, when we talk about that the idea of trying to find somebody who's the most righteous, and I've heard many pastors preach this too, you need to pick them because they are the righteous. That's the example. They can't have a past like King David. They can't have a past like Samson. They can't have, right? We're naming people that God has used, what is your take on that when you're coming before this? What are some things that you're at least hoping for when you're going, when I go into the booth and I'm hearing these people, what are you kind of hoping for or looking for in them?
It would, like I said, I'd go back to doing your research and seeing the way a man can claim anything, but I think it's how he's lived is how he will stand. And myself, I'm going to pray and really listen to the Lord. Along with doing the research, and then I guess trust in the Lord when I vote, because it takes a lot of work, I imagine, you don't get up and go, hey, in a month I'm going to go try and run for governor after working a part-time job or something. You don't. You have to have lived a life and done your own work to get there, to understand the responsibility of that position and take it seriously. And if someone has lived their life to go to that spot, believing or not, I suppose I would look at how they view their position that they're going to take, how seriously, if they're just using the political words, replies, there's program responses, or are they responding with a heart? Because that's what I'm really going to look at, is how they present themselves, not just on a web page or anything, but in person. Are they really standing in what they believe?
Right. Brad, have we heard those program responses versus what you feel are heartfelt responses in regards to any of these particular candidates, the five Republican guys?
100%. I mean, you bring up a topic, cancer's big in Iowa.
Yeah.
Right.
Bring it up. They're going to go, yeah, we're going to look into it. We're going to look at, they don't ever, what's a plan to look into it? Now, Mark brought it up when he got here. It's like, well, the governor doesn't make the laws. No. Yeah, right, there can be bad laws. The governor could do an executive order, get rid of it.
Yep.
But it just goes back to getting involved at some level. Like, you don't have to be neck deep in it, but to do your own research. I think what Chris said about, how many elections did I just not do anything? Well, for me, it goes down to the school board. When my kids were in school, I didn't go to a school board election ever.
Right.
My kids were doing fine.
Right.
My kids went to one of the most woke districts in the state. Now, and even afterwards, I'm like, was school that bad? And they're like, no. It just brought to a head, like, we didn't pay attention. We didn't pay attention. Back to your point, I didn't vote for Joe Biden. I would never vote for Joe Biden. But when he got elected, I prayed for our country every day.
Yeah.
And I pray. I mean, every morning I walked my dog. I prayed that he wouldn't get elected, and he did.
Yep.
So in the daily prayer, just protect our country.
Yeah.
Because we got thrown into the pit.
Yeah. I remember when Obama got elected, and I couldn't quite understand why. And I would say the Obama era was a learning point for me, because at the time I was becoming more vested in just disagreeing with a registered Democrat. And so then he got elected, and I was like, well, that seems weird, because is God dead? I was thinking immaturely in a lot of ways during those times. And then he got elected a second time. And when he got elected a second time, that morning I woke up and I had a new understanding. I think the Holy Spirit was being kind to me. And what I realized was, all right, he's been elected a second time. What are you trying to tell me, Lord? Because I just read in the scripture that he guides the hearts of the kings,
Yes.
and he places kings in position, and he takes kings out of position. I just read that, and here's Barack Obama. And I'm like, okay, I was asking the wrong questions, and I was trying to be a team player for conservative Christianity instead of being a servant of Jesus Christ. It says, wait a minute, Lord, this is the whole picture. What, did you lose? No, that's not the issue. something has changed. So, God, what are you trying to tell us as a country? What are you trying to tell me as a believer? And who do I need to make sure I'm being more attentive to you, Lord, and the word to being as a citizen? And I did not begrudge him his second term after that. I took it differently. Like you're talking about praying for Joe Biden. I'm like, okay, this is a new experience for me. I'm seeing why I need to not be critical as much and go, okay, God's over this thing. This isn't a battle between people. This is God doing something in me, making sure I'm in the right position in regards to that.
Submitting yourself to God's voice, though, is what I'm guilty, like not listening. I mean, I've heard God's audible words in my ears before, but for an election like this, like just listen where he's guiding you.
Yeah.
He'll show you what you need to see. But so much of us just listen to a podcast, or we see with a clip on the news.
Yep.
And that's what you base your vote off of. Or, by gosh, they're a Republican, I'm voting for them. By gosh, they're a Democrat, I'm voting for them.
Right.
Doesn't really matter what they stand on. Doesn't really matter what they've done in the past. That's still Democrat. I listened to a podcast Saturday and blew my mind. This country is so divided. It's insane.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, the lady that was on there is a Democratic strategist, and she loves Gavin Newsom. She loves AOC. I'm like, we have a problem. Like, when she's raising them up like they're the future of the Democratic Party. I'm just like, what makes you believe that? I don't know. But back to myself, like I've had times where I didn't pray to God. I didn't ask for guidance like you. I'm like, well, that's Republican. I mean, I remember going to George Bush rallies. Valley High School had a massive one. I mean, good night. You walk out there, you're ready to jump over a bridge for them, you know?
Yep.
But it has to be deeper than that. It can't just be that campaign speech where they're going to get you all fired up and hot and sweaty and, ready to do anything. But
are we too immature as a nation to go deeper? Is that part of the problem? Are we having to wait until we're our age, fellas, to start going deeper? Because I think you make a good point there.
Well, if I could jump in on that, I don't know that we're immature as a nation. Because, we would say that in the Pledge of Allegiance, they added to, the last part of it, one nation under God.
Yeah.
All right. Not a lot of people believe that, or they don't believe in the one true God. Okay. So I don't know that we're immature as a nation. To some degree, I'm going to suggest, and this goes in line with your discipleship, we don't truly know who we are in the Lord. And what we are supposed to do. Because at that point in time, what you suggested, we should go out, we should learn, we should research, we should exercise that, our voice. We could say from the heart, the mouth speaks. Well, from the heart, which is words written upon our hearts, not on tablets of stone, is spirits within us. When we take that pen and we fill in, the little circle or what have you, we're speaking. And I think, overall, I would suggest that as a nation, we've moved away from how it was established, why it was established, who established it. Once again, go back to Charlie Kirk's aspect of it was based on, a Christian belief. Okay. Yeah. We've moved away from that to where we've taken prayer out of schools. And I know, this is probably a lecture, you've got effectively Roe v. Wade. It was finally overturned, right? 3-4 years ago? There's more abortions now than there were before.
Right.
So we finally got the governor sign off on no telemedicine with regard to the abortion pill, but I know that's being challenged with, I think, Louisiana and some, other places. So, but the church was told there's got to be a separation between church and state. You cannot do this, okay? You can't advocate for, a candidate, a party, or what have you. Why not? We're citizens, but we're believers. We come together as an assembly. We speak as one. What's the difference between, us and a union, or us and a, political action committee, or what have you? And then the question becomes itself, who do we vote for? Well, it goes back to, once again, that personal responsibility that, we've been talking about. Let's test the spirit, find out, Lord, who you want, because quite frankly, it could be a test. Are you going to be faithful to me and vote for somebody because it might not be the person I want you to vote for,
Yeah.
or it might not be the person you want to vote for?
Yeah, for sure.
Type of thing.
Yeah.
But I will state this, with regard to the immaturity of the country, it's possibly that, yes, we've devolved from, where we were established or why we were established. But dare I say, that the church in general has been complacent. Why? Because in the 40s, separation of church and state, it got even further codified. And then what happens now? We're not supposed to speak. We're not supposed to do anything but sit in the pew.
Right,
So,
right. That idea of separation of church and state, which is so flawed, is so wrong, and I would dare say it's demonic, because nobody else but the devil could come up with that idea. Nobody else but the devil could come up with the idea of, if that isn't from the backdrops of the spirit of Antichrist going, look, what we need out of the election is Jesus, because you'll never hear that applied to a Muslim. You'll never hear that applied to any other religious base. Hindu, you're never going to hear them, somebody run up to them and say, look. Whatever you believe because you're Hindu, you can't bring that to the ballot box. And we have Muslim representatives now. They seem to be women that just like to scream, cry, curse, and defame authority in the federal government. But nobody said, hey, if that's a part of being a Muslim, you can't do that here. Nobody ever says that except for against Christians, separation of church and state. And that is the spirit of Antichrist coming in and doing everything that the spirit of Antichrist is going to do to try to pull that out.
So the church has bought into that, though.
you're right.
We went to a church for 30 years, and our pastor never would say how to vote, who to vote for. He'd say, you have the right to vote, go vote. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. I'm not going to tell you what the issue is. But the irony to me is most of our voting precincts are in a church.
I know.
But the church isn't supposed to be involved.
Yeah. We want to use your building.
We use your building and we vote for the good guys and the bad guys.
That's right.
But the church has pulled it back and just don't give you any guidance. Like, as the congregation, the pastor up there not providing guidance to his flock.
Right.
But we all go back to that church and vote. So church isn't supposed to be involved, but the church is still involved.
Right. What is that a sign of? What's that a sign of when the church buildings, local church buildings, are used for the vote itself, but there's a cry for separation of church and state? What is that? What's the undertow in that? The undercurrent in that? What is the church then? What is the church becoming? Let me say it that way. What's the church becoming that's happening? Is there a problem with the church itself?
So I don't know.
You won't get in trouble. You can say it here, brother.
I don't know if they should necessarily tell you. They could tell you who they might want to support, right? Because there's always free will. And that could give you something to pray about, a guidance point. And I think voting for someone, you got to remember who your Lord is.
True.
If you get caught,
True.
I liked what you said earlier about you were not voting for Barack, or you.
Yep.
And what is God saying to me in that?
Mm-hmm.
So if you get too hung up on who you're voting for or what they're doing, and it's not going the way you want, you might want to seek your Lord and make sure you're on the path that He's wanting you on. We can get caught up in politics easy. That's
true.
Why I never went. I will say it was the excuse I used. I'm like, I don't want to get caught up and I don't want to get hung up on what they like or what they like. I never thought about what I like, how I like to live, what rights I want to obtain. How are they restricting this country, this state, this city, this whatever, wherever you're at. It's for me. I turn my heart to the Lord, and it's real hard to get askew just a little bit. And if you get askew just a little bit on a long journey, that can make you way off. And it's real easy to get, especially not poking at anybody, but in politics itself. It can, like, oh, I didn't vote for that guy. How is he president? How is he governor? What is he doing now? Oh, God, you're gone. Why aren't you doing anything, God? And we might lose focus that God is still doing something. He's still on the throne. And it's real easy to lose faith. And I believe it's in Ezekiel, we mentioned that word watchman. He said, if I remember it correctly, I'm kind of paraphrasing. So if you taught someone the truth and they die from their own, that blood is on the watchman. If you did not tell them the truth and they die, that blood is on them. I'm going to remember.
Yeah, if
you
Ezekiel
get what I'm
tells
saying.
them,
Yeah.
then it's on them. If
Yeah.
Ezekiel doesn't tell the truth,
Yeah.
doesn't say the standard, then he's the one responsible.
So when the one that doesn't, when one that gets elected wasn't the one you wanted elected, like, okay, Lord, I need to see what you're doing. What are you telling me in this? What am I missing that, because that really upset me that, this guy got elected. I'm not gonna, try and dog anybody, but yeah, there a couple of years ago, there was a guy who was president, and I'm not big on politics, but I'm like, what? I'm like, who? What? This guy is our president? So, and it was, I, as a believer, started getting enraged. And I'm like, not trusting in God. I'm like, okay, I'm going to humble myself here, Lord, because you're doing something bigger than what my heart, my eyes can see. And I want to learn. I've learned to quiet myself, my heart, my mind, my everything to go, Lord, what are you doing in this? Because you ultimately have the control, and I trust in you. And so I do. I want to get more involved to the extent that I could say, hey, the younger person, you should really look into this stuff for your own life's sake.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
We have a Constitution and a Bill of Rights for you. We have it for you. We have it for you.
Yes.
There's 350,000 people in the city. It's for each one of them. I don't know. There's, another 75, 80,000 in Ankeny. There's another 50,000 in the little suburbs. It's for all of them. It's for all of us. And we can be watchmen to an extent.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we are, the people.
Yes. Yes.
I was actually talking.
Mr. Willman, thanks for joining us.
Yes.
Shocker.
I've been reading in Daniel lately, and I really had noticed how much God intervened in who was ruling at that time. And I asked him, I was like, why aren't you doing this now? And, where's, looking for the hand of God and everything. And he reminded me that we are the body now.
That's right.
It is up to the church to be speaking to the kings, to be speaking to the rulers. We are the ones that are to be governing, basically in God's stead, because he has left us here and we are to be ruling as he would have us rule. And I'm not saying we're going to be president or anything, but how he would lead and guide the presidents or the rulers of that time. We are to be doing the same thing today.
John, you said it earlier, the heart of the king is in the hand of the Lord.
Yeah.
So he can turn that heart. And as Mr. Willman basically indicated, he did that, in Daniel, he did that effectively in the book of Esther.
Yes.
Where it was turned. But, you mentioned about the quote unquote church. Okay. We all know the passage, I believe it's in Matthew 16, where where Jesus basically asks his disciples, who do the people say I am? Some say you're John, some say you're Elijah, what have you. Who do you say? And Peter says, you are the Christ. Okay. He basically says, this was not revealed to you by, flesh or what have you, but the Lord. We need to look for that revelation. But what he says next, this is what I think the church has forgotten to a large degree, or dare I say, I'll go into a little bit, has been motivated to not think. He said, upon this rock, okay, that rock at Caesarea Philippi, they did sacrifices, they threw their babies, they did all this stuff that we're seeing right now. Upon this rock, what? I will build my church, my ecclesia, my governing body, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Well, so what's happened? The adversary has basically turned this around and said to us, humankind, look out. You see all these kingdoms? I'll give these to you if you bow to me. But it's going to be in the form of submitting to government, submitting to rulership, submitting to, all these things. So what happens? It's not that the gates of hell are prevailing, but quite frankly, we're going through a wilderness time where we need to return to the Lord with our whole hearts.
Yes.
And I think we're seeing that. So going back to the church, here's the evil one saying, hey, here's government, and I'm going to show it to you and get it from you through the churches where the elections are held. Brad, you pointed out a big thing that nobody even thinks about. Why is it the church, will open the doors, okay, but not educate the flock, will not shepherd the flock. We're told that he gives us shepherds after his own heart who will impart wisdom and understanding. And that wisdom goes well, with regard to all the circumstances going on in the earth.
Yeah.
So we don't stop there. But I think the church, got, for lack of better terms, got off kilter. Let's say, probably the late 1800s, going into the 1900s, we had this codified with a Supreme Court decision based on the Danbury letter. It's like, that's not what that meant. But now we live with it. We're willing to do it. And then what happens? Churches get their 501c3s, right?
Right.
So now they basically say, well, we can't do this. Where does it say that you cannot do that? Somebody has recommended you don't do that, but where does it say you can't do that? No. And if you can't do that, just give up your 501c3.
No, exactly.
Exactly. It's not a big thing.
Right.
The only reason we did the 501c3 was to effectively do right by our people. So
right.
that, they could hold up and say, hey, we're standing behind, once again, your rules. We're basically within your rules, and we're going to use your rules. Probably not like you want us to, but we're going to use your rules, for this. And if it comes to the day that they come to us, knock on our door and say, you either do all this or you lose your 501c3, where's the dotted line?
Absolutely. In line with that, if I can say this, does anybody remember, it's been quite a few years ago, that early morning show in WHO, Jan Michelson?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was listening. I've had conversations with him online once. I called in once. It was kind of interesting. And it was fun. He's a reasonable guy, had some interesting ideas. But he had a pastor from Sioux City call in. And that pastor from Sioux City was in court because one of the members of his church was suing him because he had said, this is how I believe you need to vote from the pulpit. And so this individual was saying, I'm going to turn you into the IRS for saying that. So he came on Jan Michelson to give his name, address, and phone number. He said to the IRS himself, and said, if you need to shut me down, my door is open.
Here I am.
And nobody showed up. You know why? Because they can't. I think effectively, Jim Carlin, who's running for Senate also against Ashley Hinson.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a good one too. And this is going to bring me into another area of conversation a little bit. But Jim Carlin, we had a chance to talk to him. He's been on our program before. 3 of these Republican candidates have been on our program here on the podcast before. And one of the things he pointed out, he's an attorney. He says he believes it's 2 different cases nationwide where the IRS was successful in coming in and telling a church, we have to strip it from you if you continue in this way. And yet how many churches continue to promote what they believe and they don't walk in? So I think those situations were extraneously detailed in a way that the IRS felt like that they could, or maybe they were under other administrations that felt like they could. But that happened. And otherwise it doesn't happen. Sioux City guys like, man, come on. And nobody showed up. There's a reason for that. And it's called, Chris, download the Constitution. Right? Because once you've started to read the Constitution, it's interesting to me. I'm engaging with more Christians and unbelievers. And they're like, and Christians who are saying, you need to separate religion. Christians saying you need to separate that. And I go, well, I tell you what, let's get that out. And they said, because the Constitution says it. I said, fantastic. I pick up my phone. I click on the Constitution. I go to that right there and I said, let's read that together. And they go, oh, you're just a jerk and you're trying to be. I said, no, let's just read what you're saying. And so it's about to prove me wrong. 100% of the time, nobody wants to hear it. No. Nobody wants to read it. Nobody wants to read the scriptures that talk about these things. They don't want to engage in that whatsoever. And one of the things that Chris, it blessed me so much what you're talking about, because we have opinions. I have opinions. I have opinions about Brad Sherman. I've got opinions about Eddie Andrews. And by the way, guys, we can have those opinions here. I got opinions about Adam Steen, Zach Lane, and the unknown, Randy Feenstra, and who seems to be running or leading in the polls. And the Iowa Standard, who's a guest on here often, keeps saying, pay attention, folks, to what's going on here. The guy who's not present is winning in the polls. And I just find that interesting. And what's interesting to me is I just received something in the mail. I'm sure from the President Trump, because my emails say President Trump loves me. They literally say it. The texts come in, President Trump loves you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, me and the Trumpster, we're like this, man. You gotta zoom up on that. We're like this. We're close. And this weird politic begins to happen when the politicians begin to make you feel like they are the one that you are with. But Chris, what you were talking about is when you said caught up in politics, bro, you need to get involved in this stuff. But if Jesus stops being your Lord in the midst of it, you're just as lost. You're just as lost. So I get this email, I get this printout, right? And it's from the president, because we're close friends. And he is backing Ashley Hinson across the board. Well, I'm not voting for Ashley Hinson, because I've looked at some of the ways she's voted. Mm-hmm. And my heart and conviction, according to the scriptures, I'm just saying it from my standpoint, she's not getting it from me. So I now have to take on Christians, right? Who I'm happy to talk about it, but what's interesting to me is I'm bumping into, I don't know if you guys have had this happen too. You talk to Christians, and as soon as you say, I'm a little critical about what President Trump's doing. I'm a little critical that he's overly supporting Ashley. I'm a little critical that the people that he seems to be wanting to be supporting, I would call the unmovable wrong part of the Republican Party. And all of a sudden I have a Christian that would look at me, and they begin to wonder if you even believe in Jesus, because you were critical of the standing president. But if we're supposed to be standing on the wall, watchman on the wall, if we're supposed to be the lampstand that shines on this, if we're supposed to be the ones, the church that speaks to the presidents and the presidencies and the governors and stuff like this, I think we're all glad-handing a little too much between Christians and candidates like this. We should be critical. We should be the ones looking at this. And sometimes when you do something, we're going for a win, and that's a mistake. We're going for obedience because we love God and we honor him. And God's trying to call us closer to him. Anybody here seen the movie? I've referred to this before in the podcast, The Memphis Belle.
Yeah.
True story about the B-24 bombers. The captain's 17 years old. This young men on there doing their thing. And it's the one of these scenes is absolutely daunting to me. And this happened for me in the George W. Bush era, right? So this is when I really actually started to think, I'm going to vote. Well, why did I vote? Because his last name was Bush. And at the time, I'm no longer registered as a Republican. And I'm like, well, that's what you do. Straight ticket. Everybody's doing straight ticket. Oh, praise God, straight ticket. Well, so that's why I went in and I came out and went, oh, Jesus won. Jesus won. And in that movie, if you recall, the co-pilot really wants to shoot somebody down. They want to win. They want to be at that gunner, man. They want to be making a difference. And so he comes up with an excuse, and the tail gunner knows this is going on, and he's his buddy and runs back there and goes, hey, co-pilot, right? Let me have a chance at this. I want to have a shot at this. It's all right. So he's all, yeah, we're going to win, man. I'm going to shoot these guys down. And the enemy's coming after him, coming right up the tail of this B-24. And the co-pilot starts laying into the enemy, right? It's a win. It's a win. I done the right thing. I did it, man. I went right after the enemy. I was more than a conqueror. He didn't think that, right? If you remember in this scene, he nails the enemy's plane, which then begins to spiral out of control, flies right down into a dead drive into their friends, clips the whole wing off of their own team, and they hear their own friends scream to their death. That's what happened to me when George W. Bush stood up and said, Muslims, two things he did. And I want to bring this up because we need to consider this with the Shermans, Andrews, Steens, Lanes, and the unknown, Randy Feenstra, in all this. Is we can come and say, hey, we're doing this for the win. But when George W. Bush, who I thought I'd voted for because I was a Christian and that's righteousness, said the God of Islam and the God of Christianity is the same. You remember that, didn't you? You remember that, Brad? Do you remember that moment when you heard him say that? They're the same God. We're serving the same God. I remember watching that on TV, watching him say it, and I went, And then he said, more than ever after 9/11, we need to give government funding to churches so that they can help this country rebuild. And I went, I think maybe that's a mistake. And I hadn't even read Bonhoeffer yet. And then on top of that, I'm trying to think of what the other thing. Those are the two biggies that he did and then he opened up all surveillance. He was the administration that basically cut loose, passing all constitutionality, saying we will be surveilling every American citizen from here on out. And you know what? I regretted. I felt like the co-pilot that ran back to the gun and went, yeah, we got this done. And then I watched all my freedoms disappear in one administration. And I thought, how do I reconcile this as a Christian? How do I reconcile that? Have you guys experienced anything like this before? Because, Chris, what you're saying is if I get too developed in politics, that I'm going for the win instead of just following the Lord, right? We have to walk away and go, I followed the Lord. You didn't lose, we didn't lose, but that was a moment for me.
Yeah, as far as your little flyers from the president, I don't.
Because we're friends. Yeah.
That's scary. Isn't that kind of? Now, tell me if this sounds familiar. Hey, I can give you all the kingdoms you want. That's kind of the feeling I get from it. I'm not kicking on the president. They don't come after me.
It's all right. We're safe here.
We're shielded here.
Yeah.
And that's something we got to view and look deeper. Could I just read the first part of that?
Please.
The first 10 amendments.
I'll shut you off when you're ready to not have the freedom of speech here in the room.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead, brother.
The first 10 amendments to the Constitution make up the Bill of Rights. I learned something the other day.
James
right Madison wrote the amendments, which list specific prohibitions on governmental power. And yet they can tell us, we're going to watch you because now we don't trust you.
Yeah. Right.
Because we don't trust this other person. So we're just going to take one bad apple and throw it in the whole bunch. And I'm not big on politics, but last I knew this was a republic, right? I mean, the bottom from the top. We're supposed to be telling them. Yep. And as you mentioned something similar earlier, how they're starting to try and shape us.
Yep.
That is... It says, in response to calls from several states for greater constitutional protection for individual liberties. I'm telling you, this is where research helps you. Mm-hmm. I'm still a dummy. I'm not. But when I read that, I'm like, individuals, that's me. That's 350,000 people in Moynihan. That's 80,000 people in Ankeny. That's no. And
Amen.
What that will do. And when all these people have information, done the research, done the work, and got the value out of it, that's when things happen. That's when we go, you know what? This guy, I prayed, I've looked at him. This guy looks like he's standing up for what I need in my life.
Right. That's absolutely right. What's you guys' approach? You're seeing these candidates. Let's talk about them a little bit. What are your thoughts about them? Pluses, minuses, and what's your approach now? This is coming up 1 week, like you said, Mark, 1 week from today. And the early voting's already started, but 1 week from today, we hope people go and get involved in this primary, because it's very odd to me that the president of the United States would have such an opinion about Randy Feenstra being here and being that guy. And I just want to note that no seating senator who has run for governor of the state of Iowa has ever won. Noted. Number two, we have 4 other candidates that all have some strong ideas from where they're coming in. Is this a positive, or does this create a risk for the future of Iowa 1 year from today?
Well, as far as I know, Trump has not endorsed anybody.
Okay.
For our governor.
All right.
He sure hasn't endorsed Randy Feenstra.
Okay.
So I got the same mailer in my mailbox because Trump also loves me.
I'm a little offended right now.
He's exercised that relationship with Trump to the point where it's almost misleading that Trump is,
Oh.
backed him. So, because I agree with you, I have not seen anything where the president has come out and said, I'm backing Randy Feenstra.
Yeah, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But you look. I mean, I had a guy stop me at the car wash Saturday. Who should I vote for?
Just asked you.
Just asked me. A
Wow.
neighbor went to church with him. I'm like, you gotta do some research, man. Why no? But you do so much. I'm like, I really don't. I just research. Now, here's the people. Here's what I hear they believe. Zach Lane. His biggest thing is the cancer fight.
Yep.
He's backed by Maha.
Yep.
First candidate ever backed by Maha. Okay, that's all great. And I'm 100% against cancer. Just lost my sister-in-law to cancer.
Yeah.
My 17-year-old niece right now has bone cancer. Why does a 17-year-old have bone cancer in the state of Iowa? And it's not what our current governor and other people says, well, there's too much smoking and drinking.
Oh,
I mean, give me a break. There's not too much smoking and drinking. That's not, my niece doesn't smoke or drink and she has bone cancer. So it's not smoking and drinking. The other candidates, I don't know, you have to, like Brad Sherman, I'm 100% with him on his abortion plans and ideas. What you said, oh yeah, we got rid of Roe versus Wade. You can get a pill in your mailbox and abort your baby.
Yep.
There's videos out a couple weeks ago of women having abortion parties where the woman takes the pill and the whole place goes crazy. We're just murdering babies, murdering them. And you have a child. I'll never forget having our 2 kids. It's a miracle. It's the biggest miracle you'll ever witness in your life. And then to think I can just order something and it comes in my mailbox. I pop this pill and, within whatever hours, I don't have a baby.
right.
Because it's not a baby, it's a fetus. Well, no, there's a heartbeat at whatever, days, hours. It's incredible. Randy Feenstra is doing Joe Biden. He won't show up for anything.
I know.
And when he has, the very few times, he doesn't answer any question. Like I say, he's a politician. I heard somebody way back in the beginning, Randy Feenstra doesn't care if he wins or loses because either way he wins. If he wins the election, he's the governor. If he doesn't, he has so much PAC money behind him that he doesn't care. Like it's not going to negatively impact his life at all. Adam Steen gave up his job for the state running. I don't know all of his backing. That's pretty grassroots. But yeah, you just have to look at each individual. I have a person very close in my life. She will vote for Zach Lane 100% because of the cancer. That's his take on cancer.
Yeah.
Doesn't care about any other issues he's talking about. So even last time I'm sitting there at his website, I'm like, he doesn't mention the word cancer one time in his whole campaign page. Because they're just to get you in there. It's not real research. And I think the guy has a lot of great ideas. I really do. I don't know that I would vote for him just because of that.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty as like you, George W. Bush, and me. I'm Republican, but I guess you just vote Republican. Voting is easy. I check Republican, I turn it in, I go home. Well, now you got to look and go, you look at our lieutenant governor right now. Look what she actually supports.
Yep. Lieutenant Governor Knoyer.
Yeah, and there's a primary between her and Abigail Moss.
Yes.
So,
Yep.
She supports straight up trainings, all of it.
She has a favorite one, according to the press.
A favorite
That's
one.
right. Yeah, one in particular that she thinks is a good performer.
Hosting one in Oskaloosa?
I believe so.
Hosting trainings in Oskaloosa.
Yeah.
They had some in Pella this summer.
Yeah.
In Pella.
Can I say something to that? Because we had Abigail Moss here on the podcast, and we met her out at Atlantic when they had governors and other representatives running there. I didn't even realize that was a deal. And it started to open my eyes that this is just as important a position for state auditor as anything. Rob Sand's going to be leaving that position and somebody's going to be put in there. And I thought, oh, look, there's 2. And I thought it right away. Now, I don't register. I'm an independent, registered as an independent, thanks to George W. Bush. And now you know. And so I met Abigail Moss, and I saw Lieutenant Governor Knoyer, who I respect because of the position. And I know when God puts people there, That I'm not trying to come against. But what was interesting to me is that I thought, I heard Abigail, and then Abigail came on a program. And I just want to say, learn your people. Because at first note, I heard Abigail saying some things, and I went, oh, she sounds like a novice, and she just wants to jump in the game, and it's not a big deal. Well, then I started to do more research about Lieutenant Governor Canoyer, and then Abigail came on this program, and I went, I'm so involved in men's group. I wanted to say, dude. She's not a dude, right? But I don't know what's the female version of that? Dudette. And I had a couple people watch the show, and they said, dude, she's on fire. Like, she's saying some stuff about exposing the corruption that's going on. And she's kind of nice, and she's timid, and she's talking. I'm like, I think you got a big knife inside of you. You want to go find the bad guys, and you want to figure out what's going on. So you don't judge on what you see or initial statements or comments. Like, dig into this, find out what these people are saying. And Abigail really impressed me. I'm like, I wouldn't have thought otherwise, because I'm looking for somebody who sounds like this or acts like this. And she started saying, well, this is what we should do. And I went, wow, that's hardcore. And that's very important. And so again, back to the research, right, Chris? It's just like, take the time to find that out in regards to that. How about some of these other candidates? Adam Steen, Brad Sherman. Brad Sherman was the first to announce, and I know he continually says that. Does anybody think that that's going to benefit him at some degree, that he was willing to go without the pressures of finding out who else is going?
Well, for me, listening to him, I watched the Moms for Liberty one last night again.
Yeah.
Just to kind of get ready for this.
Good idea.
And yeah, he throws it out there right away. But I 100% believe him. He has a call from God to run.
Yeah.
And he's going after it.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you look at it, what motivates, voters? And I go back to Brad, what you said earlier. There's no perfect man. Okay? The only perfect man was Yeshua when he came down.
Amen.
Okay?
Amen.
So it's one of these. It's not the lesser of 2, 4, 5 evils, but it's really, once again, going to the Lord, researching out, but taking it before the Lord and saying, okay, Lord, now you show me, you help me discern. Isaiah 118. The Lord says, come, let us come together and deliberate the next steps that we should take. And I think we need to do this with all the candidates, because
That's good.
Each one, when you go through it, like the cancer thing, okay, I can point to my mother-in-law, died of cancer. I mean, she was in remission for years, and then it came back right at a challenging time, because my father-in-law, her husband, started going through some heart problems again. And so, her treatment was postponed. But she died of it. My mom died of it. Okay. So those are things that stand out with me. But then I start going back, okay, Lord, what we're supposed to go around and be the healers, right? We're supposed to be one with the Lord, Jehovah Rapha. We're supposed to be one with him. So we should be doing, what did he say? Heal the sick. So I appreciate that from somebody like Zach Lane, especially raising the awareness. But then it comes down to, okay, what does a governor do? Mm-hmm. And which candidate, can truly fill that in the physical, but then as much as possible, let's look through to the spiritual. And I'm just, I'll say it, for the other side of the ticket, on the Democratic side, I would question that individual effectively when he cannot state that there's only 2 genders.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Start off with that, and let's go down the list. But when you look at least at the 4 candidates, and I'm not trying to exclude, Representative Feenstra, he has said that he hasn't been at some of the debates because he stayed in Washington to do his job. On the one hand, that sounds great, okay? But on the other hand, okay, you committed to doing your job, so why are you running for governor?
Yeah.
Okay, you can't serve 2 masters, all right? And so then if we look at the other 4, each one, other than Zach Lane, has experience in government. Brad Sherman was, in the Iowa House. Yep. Then you look at Eddie Andrews, currently in the Iowa House. Then you look at Adam Steen, Director of Administrative Services. Okay. There are individuals that say, hey, we're entrepreneurs. Brad Sherman could talk about the various businesses, real estate development. Adam Steen, he could talk about those things. Zach Lane, he can talk about those things. I don't know that Eddie has ever started a business, but I'm going to tell you this. When you look at effectively starting a ministry,
Yeah.
it is
It's a business.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is first the natural. You got all the things in the world that you got to do. Then the spiritual, what have you. So you look at those things, and I know coming out of primary, I would my prayer is that we have an individual that is foundation is in the Lord, and then the Lord takes care of everything else. Are they going to be perfect? No. Are they going to make mistakes? Yes. A side note, I've probably been one individual that I've gone to people and I've said, okay, here's the script, call Zach Nunn's office. Here's the email Zach Nunn's office and ask for a request. That's what we got to do, because after they're elected, now they are accountable to us. And unfortunately, we've given that up. We basically said, you guys go, you run the government, we'll have our daily lives. And then we have the George Bush moment. When I think back on that, because I was a big George Bush, fan, but then all of a sudden, you look at what we got involved into. I was listening to a podcast of a gentleman. He's talked about the fact that, hey, he was in the military at age 17. He was first deployed to Iraq, age 18. He was there for, I believe he said 6 tours.
Wow.
And he survived.
Right.
We should not be putting people in harm's way. But at the same time, as governor, that's not a part of the governor's response here. But what do we expect out of the governor? What can a governor do? Because like we talked about before, he doesn't make laws. So what do we, what do we really know about that role, and how should it be filled, and by whom? And then we go to the Lord and say, why, then whom?
Yeah.
Well, they have executive order powers.
Yes.
But since at least Joe Biden and Trump, our country's being run by executive orders.
Yeah.
For the most part.
We can't get them codified into law. I don't even know if we're trying.
But you raise a good point, because here in Iowa, what's two of the things that all the candidates talked, the 4 candidates talked about, was eminent domain for private use.
Yeah.
Okay. But once again, that's been before the Iowa House and Senate for 2 years now, at least.
Yeah.
No move. Real estate taxes. I don't know about you, but we were talking about this before. The school district that we live in, they keep raising. I mean, they're 2 top administrators, over $600,000 in salary. And then you tack on the benefits, they're probably over $1 million. Okay.
Yeah.
And my real estate taxes go up by 27%. Why? Because 47, almost 48 cents out of every real estate tax dollar I pay goes to the school district. Now, we got to do something at the school board level, but we got to get basically the Iowa House and Senate to do something, with regard to that, because that's just theft.
Well, and the last session, I think there's 3 plans for the property taxes, or I don't even know where it's at right now.
Well, in earlier in the year, I can't remember her name, but she's the president of the Senate. She spoke out in Winterset, and she said, folks, we didn't get it done this session. Well, that was the prior session. Still didn't get done this session.
Yeah.
So, how many times are we, and especially if we have a Republican majority and we're Republicans, how many times are we going to allow this to happen before we start saying, do your job? And if you don't, you're going to get voted out.
And you'd love to go, why does this happen? You have the majority. You should be getting everything you want, what your mandates are from your voters, what your constituents say they want, and we still don't have these things. It's like,
and there, I think, Brad, you're raising a good point. Who's the king behind the king? Okay. Why? Because at that point in time, we're the voters. But where's the money coming from?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If a conglomerate says to a candidate or the Senate president, hey, we're going to give you $500,000, but you make sure this bill does not get to the floor with regard to eminent domain. Hey, folks, I couldn't get a solid majority delivered beforehand, so I didn't want to bring it to the floor and then have it fail. What? You got a majority.
You have a majority.
Yeah. If I can make a point out too, because you guys are talking about laws that have not been able to come into point, and we were talking about executive orders. And you're right, Brad. I mean, when presidents come in and they start doing executive orders, it's not codified in the law. And if it's not codified in the law, it's not for our future. It's just for the vote. Is really what it ends
How
up
many
being.
did Trump
That's
just
right.
reverse from Joe Biden? I mean, he was like
Over and over and
300
over.
some
Right.
exactly like his first day.
And Trump still doesn't have the record.
No.
And people don't know this. Trump still doesn't even have the record. One of the things that we did here in the ministry, I think it was a Wednesday night, because we were talking about governance. It was one of the classes, and I downloaded the history of all the presidents and the quantity of executive orders that he operated with. And Trump hasn't even touched yet the records in this. And all of us were a little bit shocked, because what we like to do is go, oh, that Republican, they're just do whatever they want. They're overpowered. They're just doing what they want. Well, how about Bill Clinton, who did almost third most of everybody of all those? Yeah, but he was great. Yeah, but you're not calling him tyrannist. And so we look at these things, and Chris, now I go back to, you've recently downloaded a constitution. I just got one a couple years ago for the first time in my life. You just read off of information in regards to our Bill of Rights. If people don't know this foundation, we don't understand things like, Brad, you said it, the governor doesn't make law. Governor doesn't make law. And we think we're voting for people who are going to make all those changes. But if we don't understand the process at all, if we don't understand our own rights, this is very necessary. To what degree has this impacted you? I know for a fact you've started reading into this, and even what I'm hearing you're saying, you're like, there's a different breath coming through you, brother, from understanding that you have an individual right that has been given by God, that all of a sudden there's some outside opposition out there called the government that's a little bit against you.
I've heard Chris so many times he's not into politics, but you're very smart in politics.
You're nailing it, bro. I'm nailing it.
Just to call you out a little bit.
Yeah, right.
Busted.
I get what you're saying. I am not.
Oh, here we go.
You're
again.
educating
Here we go
yourself
again. No,
as-
So
Yes.
who is smart in politics? The man who's running for office who goes,
oh,
we're going to take care of cancer. Where do you go when anyone, I'm sure we've all known someone with cancer. Where did that person go run into the governor's office? I got cancer. What are we going to do about this, buddy? No. They go to the hospital. And I'm not, and I get they can speak up and maybe say something, but that's not, we're looking to it's the illusion of the enemy. I can give you all these territories here if you want to. That's the deception, the lie. It's been said in this room today that we not only do our research, but I also said we got to look at how they're standing. We have a responsibility to these people. Because once you elect them, get them in office, and they keep running and running. Why? Because we let them. If they're not doing what they said they would do for us, gotta go. Gotta find a new guy who's going to stand up and serve with the faith that he was put there with.
Yeah.
And do the things right, because God's God, because He keeps His word.
Yes.
We got to keep people to their word. If they're not going to do, they're not standing. That's what I meant by stand. Are they standing in what they said they would do?
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Are we both? Are you learning your rights? Are you now reading the Constitution? Are you understanding what the government does that doesn't? I just learned. I didn't know the government doesn't make laws. The governor.
Right.
I didn't know that. I thought he was the governing authority of the state. I thought law, no good. Not. It's learning is our greatest tool. Learning our rights, learning our Constitution, learning the roles of the people that we elect and put in office. Are they standing the way we thought who we was? You can go to a ballot box and just check off one. Are you doing any good that way?
Mm.
Are you just helping someone pass along illusions? Or are you fueling their political knowledge? I don't have political knowledge. I don't know anything about this stuff.
Right.
But I do know about standing as a man.
Hallelujah.
And how important that is to me now.
Yes.
I used to think it was more important to me. and male or female, I don't care. There's man at both, right? Are we standing, I guess I want to say, knowing who we're going to stand before at the end?
That's right.
Yes.
And so when we look at someone, this person wants to stand for cancer. Okay, are you going to hold their feet to the fire over that? Are they going to get funding to better help research cancer, how to better treat it, how to, or are they giving pills that are going to kill, babies in the womb? Or so what I meant when I say do your research and look at the way people stand. Look at that track record. Did this person go through different chains to learn so he could be an effective governor? Or is he just learning all the tricks of the trade, if you want to put it that way? I was a painter at a time, and we use terms, and there's tricks of the trade to every trade. So is that all they're learning? They got the good words for you?
Right. The political
are they
tricks of the
really
trade.
pulling you in by their words, or is it because this person has experience in this?
Yeah.
So
that word accountability, that's difficult, I think. And I'm going to pose this out here too, as we're talking about this too. You said, Chris, if they don't keep their word, then we need to do something about that. Last year, for the first time ever in my life, for trying to be an advocate of getting involved, I wrote both of my representatives in regards to the desire of my heart for them to consider a convention of states with the state of Iowa. They would take a look at that they would support that idea. What I wasn't expecting is that they didn't care. What I wasn't expecting is that, they say, oh, email us, you're our constituents, So I emailed them, and I even lettered it out properly. Like when I've been down to the Capitol several times every spring. And some of the things you learn is you don't write them and you say, hey, jerk, hear me now, right? Because there's a respect, and say, duly so, thankful for your service and representing me in this district. A thing that I would like you to consider as this bill is coming forth, that in the Convention of States, there's a discussion of this in the state of Iowa. And I'm letting you know as your constituent that I am for this, and I would be glad for you to support this. And I wrote both of them on it. I've never received an email back. Well, so then they tell you, well, you can go down to the State House, and then you can stand there at the door, and they have a good old-fashioned piece of paper, and you can write on there, and the page runs in, and they give it to them. And you can stand there, and that representative may or may not come out based on the timing of that. And they can come out and talk to you directly. Now, that's a step I haven't taken yet. And I have some of my own concerns. I'd like you guys' thoughts on this too. I have some concerns that because of the COVID era, I think it's exposed much. I think it's exposed much weakness governmentally. And I think it's done two things. One, the people that the age of accountability through voting, I believe may be done. This is my thoughts on it. I believe the age of we can get it changed through time, through voting. And there are many high-powered Republicans in the state of Iowa that preach that like it's Christ and you should repent and come to the altar. Know that this is how this gets this changed. 5 years ago, I watched COVID happen, and I watched every civil right the United States of America promises me be absolutely illegally infringed upon across the board. And now we have, like you said, we got supermajority Republicans in the state house of the state of Iowa for years, not addressing things that people of faith have been asking them to do, and that's why they're there. So are they just seeking the power just like anybody else would? Is that not the problem? And as a result of that, is the vote possible to create that kind of accountability? Because obviously my two representatives are not going to respond to me, right? And how does that actually get created? And I think we're in this weird place. I think we're in an interesting place where we still get to vote at this point, as it is. We still get to vote. It's not tyranny. Excuse me. I consider the United States a partial tyrannical state. And I'll do another podcast. We can have that conversation later, because there are tyrannical things in place that don't change in the state of Iowa and in the United States of America. And you can't hide them. You can't go, well, we'll stir democracy. I'm going, you don't see the cancer within it. That's simply tyranny. That's how it works. Go to Europe, you'll see it. There it is. We're here. But the problem is, and I want to go to vote, right? Because I want to be right before God, but I can't go and vote because I'm on a team that's going to win. I'm going to vote because Christ is the winner and he's the one. I'm not voting for Jesus. I'm voting because of Jesus. right? And so his kingdom will come.
Yep.
It's absolutely on arrival. There's no question about that. In the meantime, I vote because he lives inside of me. Why? Because he saved me. Why? Because I was good? No, because I was evil. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. So when I'm going to vote, I'm not trying to be a part of the winning team. I'm trying to remember the one who defeated the enemy on my behalf and my sinful nature. And I think we all understand that, and we're addressed that when we come towards this. How do we come forth? It's because Christ has saved us. Now we come to him and we say, you lead us. And we're not here to try to get the win. Some of the wisest words I ever heard, it might have even been Abigail Moss, and I hope I'm not misquoting. I believe it. She said, I believe that God's asking me to run. She goes, I don't believe he's told me I'm going to win. That is some kind of wisdom. If you say God's calling me to run, but I've already heard within the Republican candidates, one of which particularly who sides with the idea that says if you don't win, there's no point. Well, that's a power move. So you're either in because of God or you're in because you have to win. And I think that's misleading also. So where's that age of accountability? Are we in a position where there's enough scuttlebutt in the citizenry where we're going, look, government. No, I'm not an advocate. I'm not saying, hey, let's call for a civil war. But I'm saying, are we in a place where people are being ignored long enough? Will there be a time where there'll be enough men like us and say, look, we're going to take one more step. We're going to show up at the Capitol and say, look, you are not listening. That's all. You are not listening to us. And at what level would that be? Will we see that exchanged just because we voted for a particular candidate? Any one of these candidates for that matter? I don't know. But the apprehension that I will continue to carry for some time, it hasn't been put at ease yet that we're at a place where me, might have to do more than just vote. It even makes that almost too simplistic. Say more, get more, talk more. Because at what point is the government not listening? Now, I love being in Iowa, and I love what Iowa has to offer. You guys brought up two big issues already on property tax, how much of that percentage is coming out. Had incredible conversation with Eddie Andrews here, who told me how much money comes from the federal government down to the state for our education of our children. Horse hockey, that the teachers aren't getting paid enough and our taxes aren't high enough, that the federal government already isn't the influence of the public education of our entire public education society. They're pouring more money into those kids, therefore they get to say. That's a problem. That's a huge problem. And so we are in positions where voting somebody in isn't going to repair all these things. But does it still matter to vote true to your heart so that the world sees that? Abortion, illegal in this state, but now there's more abortions. Is it more important that we call it illegal than actually stop it?
I think it's important to call it what God calls it, murder.
Yes.
He's the one that said, thou shalt not murder.
Yes.
Well, to me, it's not only murder, it's basically a sacrifice, Who are the babies presented to? Moloch,
Yes.
Basically a no God that people served. And that accountability, I think, is critical. Now, I'm going to suggest this. You're teaching on discipleship.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does discipleship mean I listen to a message and sit in a pew? No. No. It's like Christ said, go. And you study that word out, go. That literally means to besiege. Okay. Because he called out a kingdom within a kingdom. You don't walk into somebody's kingdom and say, hey, there's a new king in town, and by the way, that means you're gone. So I'm going to take it down to the spiritual aspect. This is a fight, okay? And so it's not so much to call abortion illegal. It's not so much to call abortion immoral. It's not so much to call abortion, murder or what it is. It goes to what Chris said. What did God say?
Yeah.
And how are we manifesting that in this earth? So the accountability is such that, number one, I need to be accountable to Yeshua, okay? Because he's my Lord, my Savior. He's God. Then, while somebody that is elected might not believe like me, that does not preclude me, prohibit me, or restrain me from holding them accountable. Okay. because you just mentioned something about Eddie Andrews. Okay, real estate taxes here in Polk County are going up. They have gone up. Okay, and that's biennial. So we get to wait till next year to find out how much more they're going to go up. All right.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
And then you get the federal government, and my whole thing, the wrong argument there, from, dare I say, Eddie, is that okay? Federal money is being dumped in here. Why are we getting taxed locally? Well, Eddie, where did those federal dollars come from? We're taxed locally. All right. So why is it going to Washington just to come back here? And that's something that candidates have basically said, hey, I've delivered more money from the federal government. My response would be, why is it going to the federal government in the first place?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that accountability, we should be holding them accountable. You mentioned about you wrote letters, you didn't get a response.
Yep.
Okay. I wrote a letter to the prior state representative. Okay, was a Democrat. All right. I didn't write a letter. I called. I got a written letter signed by that representative in 3 days. 3 days.
Wow.
Okay. They could have looked up. They could have found who I'm affiliated with. All this other stuff. But that individual basically respected me enough that they responded in the form of a letter. And when I had called, whoever was the person on the receiving line probably wasn't pleasant for him, but that person copied down everything. That letter addressed every point I raised.
Wow. Wow.
Okay. Fast forward, that person gets beat. All right.
Yep.
I wrote, emailed, called my representative. Okay. Didn't get a response from him. Called him again. And I said, oh, by the way, that Democrat that you replaced? Guess what? She responded in 3 days. And here we're going on effectively 4 weeks, and I haven't gotten one response. All right. And so those are the kind of things that, and then I did get a response, by the way. But those are the things that, we need to, Democrats thrive in this area.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They market, they door knock, they do all this stuff. Republicans, or independents, we probably don't do as much.
Not as good. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we need to, if we vote for that person and that person wins, they are an extension of us.
Yeah.
They need to understand it, and they need to respond to us. Even if it's something that, quite frankly, we could have disagreement on. And the last thing I would say is, we're not attacking the person; we're attacking the idea.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's one of the things that I think too many times people feel it's got to be a zero-sum game of I win, you lose.
Right.
Okay, how do we get to a mutual understanding? And if you do understand this, where's this on your list of priorities? Okay, is it on your list of priorities? Because that's one of the things you ran on, and that's one of the things that you're not exhibiting.
Right, right.
They expect zero accountability.
Right, right.
I've had the same thing, same experience. I've written more letters in the last 5, 6, since COVID, to my representatives. The only reps that have ever responded are Democrats. I mean, they don't have to look my name up too hard on social media. They know where I stand.
Right, right.
I mean, it's not hard.
But you got responses
from the Democrats.
Yeah.
Every single time. But like you said, I didn't attack them. like giving Monsanto immunity. That's complete hogwash. Like you can't do that.
Right, right.
But it was always the Democrats that did that. Republicans get in. And I think, to your exact point, we don't do enough as Republicans and independents. Democrats believe in everything they do to their core. If it's evil or good, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Republicans, we get people elected because we think they are like we are. They believe what we are. They're a Christian. Then they go in and they serve, and then there's no accountability again.
Right, right.
They don't even expect it. And if you email them or call them, I've never got a response back.
Yep, yep.
I mean, the first time I ever did it was when my kids were in college and COVID hit. And our daughter came home and she had to write a paper on why white people are racist.
What?
And she goes, Dad, look at this. Look what I got. I'm like, I emailed the dean right then and there. Got an email back. Oh, that's not what the professor wanted. I sent him the syllabus. This is then I get about. Oh, it's not even graded. It's not a grade. What are we doing it for?
Yeah. It's called indoctrination.
Yes.
That right there
That's
showed
right.
me though you can reach out.
Yeah.
Now they're not always going to answer you,
Yeah.
but we ended up getting, and I'm not saying I did this. That dean went to that professor, made him cancel that
Wow.
assignment.
Wow.
So there is power when you want to use it. Not power. You do have authority.
Yeah.
Over your elected people, over your school teachers, but we just don't do it. We're like too comfortable, I don't know what the right word is, but
Yeah.
Well, and one of the things that you just mentioned, you exhibited effectively where you stood on something. You took a stand. I remember, John, they had the individual from Iowa State that went into Johnson schools and talked about Islam and the Muslim faith.
Yes.
And you, once again, stood firm. You wrote, if I remember correctly, not only school, Des Moines Register, what have you.
Yep.
So those are things that we need to do. And too many times we've been passive.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
we have just said, you know what, I'm going to elect them, let them do it, and then in 2 years, 4 years, we'll come back, we'll revisit. To Chris's point, no, we need to monitor this, we need to study it out, and we need to know effectively what they stood on. But at the end of the day, that has to come from us. And not only from us, but look around this table. The four of us could get together and we could go out and do some work. Okay. So every party, Democrat, Republican, what have you. Okay. They're always going to go down to the lowest level and say it's grassroots. We need folks to door knock. We need folks to do this work. Lit drops, signs in the yards, things of that nature. But then if you need that and the candidate that gets elected, not just primary, but gets elected and is the final office holder, that cumulative body that was raised up to be that grassroots, whatever that organization, that assembly, that body is over them, not only we should be going to the candidates, but we should be going to effectively, those precinct leaders, those central committee, district committees, things of that nature, and saying, hey, you know what? This person said this. I raised up a bunch of individuals to get out and knock on the doors and overcome these deficiencies in this candidate. And now this candidate is doing the same crap all over again. Excuse the language.
Right.
Same stuff all over again. But you, as an organization, if you expect my help, my, e pluribus unum, out of many, one, right? Well, that one's not just at the grassroots level. That's got to be at the top. That could be, for instance, in Iowa, Republican Party of Iowa. Why are you letting this happen? It just boggles my mind that we have 4 districts in the state of Iowa. 4 Republicans, and I'm in the Republican Party, okay?
Yep.
4 Republican U.S. representatives, okay? One is running for District 3, Zach Nunn. He's running for re-election, okay? Ashley Hinson.
Yep.
She's running for what? Joni Ernst's seat. You just gave up a seat potentially, all right? Miller Meeks, contested seat, all right? It's not going to be an easy run.
Yep.
Neither is Zach Nunn's. And then Feenstra's running for governor. So you potentially gave up effectively at least 2 seats, if not 4.
Yeah.
Because you've just switched it and said, hey, Republican Party, you were elected, to be our U.S. representative. And, oh, I didn't realize that when I elected you, it was a career path.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, dare I say, with regard to whether it's, the run for governor, run for state auditor, run for, Joni Ernst's seat. What, is it a stepping stone or is it for effectively the position that they're running for? Because if it's a resume builder, you know what? I at that point in time, I'm not saying I'm checking out, but I'm looking for somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
For
because
sure.
when we hire somebody, we want that person to grow, but we don't want to basically raise them up and all of a sudden they go get a job somewhere else.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. True.
100%.
Guys, I one of these times probably have to slate a couple hours, and we'll have a dinner plate in the front with some snacks and some drinks. Right. Bringing religion and politics to the dining room table. A couple of donuts, bro. It's going to be good stuff. And what I want to do is I'm going to start to my right. And Chris, I'd like you, each of you, to think about this here for a second. Something you would like to say to those who will be listening and are listening to this podcast that you would like to recommend to encourage them toward what's about to happen on even past June 2nd, but we are focused on June 2nd, but it's more than that. We have these Senate races that are going on at the federal level. We have these. Try to think of one or two core things inside of you and say, look, here's something I want to recommend you do. It's going to help you as you pursue what you as an American citizen, and there could be some unbelievers listening to this podcast. That's not a problem, but you would still recommend as a believing brother a step for them to take next, whether they're novices in politics and voting or whether they're long-term people who've been involved. Chris, what would you share with our listeners and say, I would do this and get going that direction? It'll help you.
I would say number one, get educated. Download your Constitution and your Bill of Rights. Understand how I'm speaking to the voters. Get educated. Learn your rights. Know the purpose and function of the governors, the senators, these people, so you can properly vote for those to better your life, because that's what they're for, right? By the people, for the people. To the voted, who do you serve? Don't forget the responsibility and who we all, this is to voters and to the voted, who we all are going to answer to, and stand in what you say you will do without fail. Amen. Whether you fail in your whatever office you may reside in, remember why you were heading there. If it's for vain reasons, God be with you. If it's for godly reasons, God be with you.
Amen. Amen. Brad?
I would piggyback on that. Like, for the elected, what do you stand on? What are your actual beliefs? Are you trying to get elected to do something or be something? Are you trying to be this is my next stepping stone? Especially for a governor's race. I think COVID showed us how important a good governor is.
Amen.
I think we have a great governor. There's stuff I still don't agree with, like the lieutenant governor. But just, do you really stand on what you say you stand on? Will you govern on what you say how you're going to govern? And I've said this for a while. Like, just most Republicans you look at, they get elected because they want to be somebody. The Democrats want to do something. I think a lot of that's evil, but they're resolute in doing it. When we've talked before, the Democrats must get the email every day. This is what our talking points are, because everyone you see says the same exact thing.
Yeah,
you never see that Republicans ever. For us voters, you have to educate yourself. You can't go up to your friend and say, "Who should I vote for?"
That's right.
And I think what was said earlier, I think someday we're all going to stand before God.
Yes.
And what were your actions? And what were your words? And what did you do? And if I vote for Donald Trump and he wins, here on earth, it doesn't really mean a lot. If he loses, doesn't really mean a lot on earth. When I stand before God, that's the question. That's what I have to answer. That's what we're all going to answer, regardless if you believe that or not. the one true God is who we're serving. We're not serving President Trump. I mean, I've had this argument. I don't put faith in our politicians. My faith is in God and God alone.
Amen.
But they still govern us while we're here.
Yeah.
So we can't disengage ourselves and just go, oh, nothing ever happens, so I can't put my vote in, or my vote's a waste. It might be, but you still have the right to do it. God gave us this right in this country to do this, found on his principles, and he tells us what we're supposed to do. We have to follow that and not just get discouraged and just throw our hands up, say, well, everybody's bought, everybody's paid off, everybody's this. Well, not everybody is.
Right.
Or maybe they are, but you still have to use your intelligence, your ability to read. I had this argument in COVID all the time. You're not a doctor. No, but I can read.
Yeah.
I can research. It's no different than with our politicians.
Yep.
I don't. You're like, I'm not the smartest guy. Neither am I. I can read and I can research and I can talk to guys about it.
Yep.
And learn from each other. But you have to do your duty.
Yeah.
It's your duty for this country to get out and vote. We've all, not all, most of us have failed miserably in that, from school board elections all the way to the president.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Sure. Mark?
Well, I want to thank Chris and Brad. I agree 100% with what you guys have said. I think, and John, you've heard me take this, I always take you back to the word. Paul said this in Romans, first the natural man, the physical man, then the spiritual man. We need to educate ourselves. Okay. I would suggest also that you pray. Go before the Lord. Lord, give me eyes to see and ears to hear, that I may discern your will for this time, and test the spirit of these candidates. And that doesn't mean a negative.
Right,
I'm not testing the spirit
right.
for the negative.
Yeah.
I'm testing so that I get discernment, I get understanding. As Proverbs, get wisdom, get understanding. But then the last thing Brad, you started off with this. There is no perfect man. There is no perfect woman. All right. So that's why we go to the Lord. So not that he shows us the lesser of two evils or anything like that, but rather he's going to show us the path that he wants us to take. And it could be totally outside of what we think we should be doing. And, and have faith, have belief, have confidence in that. Once he shows you that, if you're called to, you can communicate it. If you're called to, you can advocate. If you're called to, not that you denigrate anybody or diminish anybody or anything of that nature, but you can call to question. Have you thought about this? This person said this. Have you thought about this? And once again, it's not about attacking the individual. It's about, once again, testing the idea, or, as I said earlier, the king behind the king. Because like you said, Brad, there's so much money out, that goes out in this world. I could see why they do it. I grew up in Chicago. Okay. When Carol and I were living on the north side, there was the 53rd Ward, and two people spent over $500,000 each for a job that paid $70,000. Now, you want to tell me what the return on that investment is, not for those aldermen, but for the folks that basically gave them the 500 grand. Yeah. So there is that, and that's where we need to once again pray about that it gets revealed. Because God will reveal. I mean, he did it with, effectively, I mentioned the book of Esther. He did it with Haman,
Yeah.
And then what happened? The gallows that Haman built to, effectively hang Mordecai and what have you, was used to hang Haman.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. I want to thank all of you guys for being willing to participate in this kind of conversation and to be able to come together and to have these ideas kind of just dropped into the middle of the table. And I want to exhort people, and I want to encourage them that if you're not used to having a conversation like this, find two other people in your church who are willing and try it. Get around a table and have this discussion. Doesn't matter where you're coming from, what you're believing, but this is how this begins to get shaped, and you feel like you can go down and do it. You can go find out more about what happens on our podcast at whitedoveministries.net. And I want to remind everybody, put away the gods of your fathers and choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve. But as for me and our houses, fellas, we will serve the Lord.
Amen.